what would be your greatest small, I mean, we're going to be stingy here, but with a small group conference, what's your greatest small group metaphor that you give us?
Oh man, there are a lot of metaphors that come to mind, but let me just give you one that kind of we're looking at. There's a chandelier above that dining room table over there that is kind of a test for me when I bring my students here. I do this doctoral cohort, and I bring them all here, and their final kind of test is to look at that chandelier. And I make them look at each one. I actually unscrew one of the shades and show how it's signed by Queasel. He was perhaps the greatest student of Tiffany. And but he and Tiffany kind of got in, you know, how students need to strike off from their mentors, and so he went and founded his own company. And whenever he did a piece of glass and blew a piece of glass that he would like, he would sign it. So I point out this chandelier and I say, now, one of those shades was not signed by Queasel. One of them was not sufficiently the quality that he could put his signature on it. And the test is, can you tell which one? And can you identify which one of those shades in that chandelier is not the quality to be the Queasel? Most of them can't. A few can. But once you point out the difference between the incredible translucence and iridescence of a Queasel sign shade and one that isn't, all of a sudden it pops out and you realize, how did I ever miss it? Oh, there is a huge difference, you know. And that for me is one of the metaphors of what a small group can do to a person, is to help them to live a life that is signed by Christ and showcases the presence and power of Jesus living in that person so that others can see it. And there's a depth there, there's a richness there, there's a beauty there that is nowhere else to be found.
What I love about that too is just, not only do you see the life that's signed by Jesus, but you quickly have the eyes that Jesus had to be able to see which
Bingo.
one isn't.
Exactly.
For community, how does that play out to the person out there who, we're obviously talking with small group pastors at this conference. How does it play out to them in their church, in their own personal life?
Well, and to bring the epic and the MRI together, for me, if I were a small group pastor, the question would become, how do I make every small group encounter and that I have more epic, more experiential, more participatory, more image-rich, more connective. So again, that's the interface. But the issue of what you're doing there, that's not the content. That's like the methodology. You know, the content is, you know, first of all, this missional component is huge. I mean, you were made for a mission. Every one of your people was made for a mission. This was the download Protestant Reformation. The priesthood of all believers. Your baptism is your ordination into ministry. I mean, we've been dealing with that download for 500 years, but that was done 500 years ago. The download today is not just your baptism is your ordination into ministry. Your baptism is your commissioning as a missionary. God, you have a ministry to the body and a mission in the world. So part of the mandate of every small group is, how do we help you to understand what your ministry to the body is and what is your mission in the world? Because you were made for a mission. I mean, and you don't think that resonates with people. How else do you explain how many millions of purpose-driven life have sold now? I mean, purpose is Rick's way of talking about mission.
In your book, Jesus Drives Me Crazy, which is an interesting title in and of itself, but in that you talk about two powerful statements that you were there for me.
Yeah.
And
thanks for being there.
Thanks for being there,
yeah.
and then you were never there for me.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
a piece of that. Can you?
Yeah. Well, it's just I'm trying to help people kind of discover the simplicity on the other side of complexity. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that first, and so I'm trying to get the gospel down into real shorthand form. And so for me, I did this whole book about 4 words: be there with all. And be there, first of all, is to me the essence of be is character, there is context, and you bring together character and context, and that's what Jesus enables us to be, an original character. That's the being, and to be the person that God made us to be, which is one of a kind, unrepeatable, irreplaceable. The church hates cloning, biological cloning, but we're the biggest cloning factories around. You know, no. God made you to be one of a kind. Ephesians 2:10. We are God's masterpiece, God's poem, every one of us is this artwork, you know, that God has created out of the power of Jesus the Christ. And so the power of Jesus, then, I mean, the mystery here is the more we're like Christ, the more Christ lives in us, and the more we become like him, the more different we become, unique we become, not the more same we become. So that's the being, and then there, the mastery of character, mastery of context. We translate a word in Greek wrong, and it just doesn't. It may have worked at 300, 400 years ago, but it doesn't work today. At least it leads us in bad directions, and that's fool. Where Paul talks about being a fool for Christ. You know, and at one point, this is, I think, he talks about you know, that for the sake of you, I'm appearing as normal as I possibly can. But then he goes on, but if you only knew, that the love of Christ has made me into something very different. The Greek is moros. We translate it fool, but the Greek, we get another word out of it, moron. It really means crazy. It means that, and it's interesting to me, every pop singer's got to have a crazy song. You know, I'm crazy in love. You know, Patsy Cline had it first, you know, crazy, you know. I'm crazy in love, you drive me crazy, you know. Every pop singer has a crazy song. Beyonce, say, has one now, I guess. And, but if somebody says, who are you fundamentally, Len Sweet? And I have to say, you know, I am crazy in love with Jesus. That sounds weird. You know what I want to be most remembered for? I am somebody who's crazy in love with Jesus. I don't want to make a difference. I want to make, Jesus did not come to make a difference in the world. He came to make a different world. Our dreams are so small, you know. Jesus didn't come to change the world. He came to save it. Let's start dreaming some big dreams. You know, I've spent 20 years writing books, wanting the church to wake up, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I want to help the church to dream again. You know, it's one thing to wake up. It's another thing to dream. I'm tired of writing books about helping the church to wake up. Let's dream. And we need some God-sized dreams. We need some big dreams. Our dreams are so puny and pint-sized. Let's dream. Let's dream some new dreams.